So speaking of the media not covering things, there's some stories you're focused on that I haven't heard a damn thing about. I haven't covered it either. So let's start with Alabama. What's going on in Alabama?
Yeah, it's a remarkable situation going on in Alabama. And amazingly, Jordan, you're not the only one. Virtually nobody knows about it, even in the Congress. So what's going on right now in Alabama is you have a situation where in Birmingham, Alabama, they decided that they were going to – first of all, Alabama does not have a minimum wage. You have 5 southern states that do not have a minimum wage, if you can actually believe it. So obviously it reverts back to the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour. So the point is basically what they did is that Birmingham, Alabama said that we are going to increase the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. And ultimately what transpired was that the state of Alabama said, nope, that's not going to happen. We are not going to allow that. And then there is now a lawsuit that basically saying that this is discriminatory in nature, and therefore we demand, in terms of Birmingham, Alabama, to in fact have it so that we can raise it, and hopefully up to $15 an hour. So there's a big issue right now in 2007. There's going to be a big, huge lawsuit regarding that matter, and I think it's just profound ramifications in terms of the rest of southern states as well as the rest of the country. Because if you can have Birmingham, Alabama increase their minimum wage and then potentially make it a living wage, and then you can have the fight for 15, then ultimately you have a lot of other people will have confidence in themselves. A lot of states and localities are basically going to say, if Birmingham, Alabama can do it, then we can do it. I'd almost put the adage, I don't remember the adage in terms of 1981. It said, as goes Burlington, so goes France. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well, people say, as goes Birmingham, there goes the rest of the country. That's fairly significant stuff. So right now there's a huge issue which is not getting enough attention.
How does how does Alabama get away, and these other states get away with no minimum wage if we have a federal minimum wage?
Well, that's a good question. Basically, so what it reverts back to. So ultimately what they've decided basically is that they are not going to have any minimum wage, but clearly they have to have a minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour. Mm-hmm. So basically in terms of federal, to be honest, I don't know the specifics about that, and that's another issue I'd love to talk about. And I'd be interested, Jordan, in terms of interviewing folks about this issue, because I think it's a big issue. I think a lot of the Young Turk fans would be really interested in that issue because it's a huge issue. But there are 5 southern states right now that do not have the minimum wage.
Looks like you just picked my next reporting trip. I'll go.
All right, I'm going with you, Jordan. You understand? I'm going to go with you. But
all right, cool. And there's also something going on with the First Amendment you were mentioning.
Yeah, so, I mean, right now the issue of viewpoint discrimination. So one of the issues is, regardless of your perspective, I think ultimately everybody understands that, everybody in the media should have an opportunity to, talk to, the White House and understand what's going on. So you have different perspective, whether it's BuzzFeed, New York Times, whatever, Fox News, whatever your vantage point, but everybody has an opportunity. So what's ultimately, what they've decided is basically they are only going to allow certain people to be involved in these, I don't even know what you call them, but what do they call them, pressers, or I don't know what the particular term.
Gaggles, yeah.
Gaggles, okay. So you have gaggles. So what ultimately is happening now is that you have lawyers saying this is unacceptable, this is viewpoint discrimination, and you can't pick and choose who can ultimately be listening to these gaggles. So I think that there's a real chance that they could be successful on this. You have a lot of lawyers who are looking into this issue, and I think it's a big issue because the whole essence, regardless of what your perspective is, and I know people are angry, understandably, in terms of mainstream media, whatever like that. But the reality is we have to be. Everybody has a right to express themselves and to point and get the perspective. They don't even know what's going on, particularly in terms of a crisis situation. We want to have different viewpoints to be able to explain to the American public what's going on, and then we can debate the issue.
Right. And I think what's dangerous also, I wrote about this over the weekend, Donald Trump is kind of like, from the White House, making like, it's the Fox Newsification of the country. You know what I mean? It's like alternate facts, for example, was said by his aide. He literally is having a Breitbart News reporter interview him in the Oval Office. Now, I'm not against conservative media interviewing the president, but when you have a website or anything that's known for conspiracy theories, that's known for alt-right or racial things, that's almost like you're really kind of you're mixing a bowl of Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, and making it go presidential. And as much as I'm not in love with CNN or New York Times, the fact that they're being blocked from the press gaggle. Trump is also dodging his press pool to go to dinner. His press pool is supposed to know where he's going and have access to him within reason, obviously not inside his bedroom, because who knows, something could happen to the president, and there's no press nearby. So I think he's kind of making up the rules as he goes along, but it's kind of dangerous because Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! Says it well. I mean, without an informed public, you don't have a democracy.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the reality is, and you have a situation when you talk about the issue of fake news or alternative news. Kellyanne Conway coined this thing, and the problem ultimately, Jordan, you have is that a vast majority of people, just an incredible statistic. People on average have 10 hours a day of screen time. Can you actually believe that? So, Jordan, within that, what percentage of people are actually really reading substantive issues or substantive facts about anything? And the problem ultimately is when you talk about the issue of fake news, and CNN has actually done some pretty good work in this area, is you look objectively speaking in terms of, Jordan, as you know, you can go to abcnews.com and you ultimately come to a whole different conclusion about what's going on when it's not even ABC News. So you have all these fake news sites. And then it gets very complicated because you have legitimate frustration and anger with what's going on with mainstream media in terms of how corporations kind of control what people see and believe. But you also have significant serious fake news. And when Donald Trump basically says that in essence, the whole issue of the media and news outlets are in essence, should be hated by the American. I'm paraphrasing it, but the reality is ultimately that we shouldn't trust it, and the media is the enemy of the American public, or whatever he says it. That's pretty dangerous stuff, particularly in a time when people are increasingly reading less about real substantive issues and getting their news really from alternative news and not even doing any fact checking. So it's a very serious problem that's going on in America.